Hey, so in the past, I had a lot of like heavy oral DMT experiences. I guess people would call them heroic doses. Um, I did it a lot in like a short period of time at one point because I guess I was sort of searching for something and I couldn't really figure out what that was, and I sort of put myself through like a few consecutive heavy ayahuasca doses. I'm actually pretty happy that I went through it, or like I'm grateful, sort of. I'm pretty sure that I wrote about all of them, but I just sort of just wanted to share three so far because I guess in the first one that I'm gonna read, it was my first experience just to sort of get my feet wet, but it was still a pretty heavy dose and a pretty powerful experience. And then the next two that I'm gonna read are ones that were like some of my heaviest experiences and most powerful experiences. So let me just get the first one. So the first one's called First DMT Brew Experience, Second Attempt, because the first attempt failed. So let me just read this one. I want to share my amazing first trip with mixing DMT with Syrian rue. This was my second attempt in Pharmahuasca because last time I tried I took 3.8 grams of brew and didn't grind it into a powder. About 45 minutes later I took 200 milligrams of DMT in a capsule, which only ended up causing a slight head change, no distinct visuals. In retrospect, I'm a bit glad I went a little more modest on my second attempt because oh boy was this experience intense. This time I took 3.7 grams of rue, which I powdered and drank with water. This time I waited much longer to take the DMT, roughly 75 minutes, and then I put 150 milligrams of DMT in a small shot of lemon juice and held it sublingually in my mouth for 5 to 6 minutes and then swallowed. This time it worked amazingly. About 20 minutes later I felt the DMT presence slowly crawling. I was watching nice looking fractal patterns that were matrix-like, and it took shape of walls in strange places with square tunnels and stuff. Normal things I see on low smoked DMT doses. I quickly went to my bed and turned off all lights and sound. I love tripping like this, especially intense trips like DMT. And the trip's intensity kicked up almost immediately. After 5 minutes I was completely out of body in hyperspace. I had dozens of humanoid entities grabbing at me inside beautiful alien-like hyperspace patterns and places. The most complex visuals I have ever had. I was traveling through different hyperspace rooms, quite beautiful and seemed visually impossible. I was chilling with strange, loving humanoid entities after I was looking down in this strange, out-of-body dimension, and I could see my loving inner demons as some sort of menacing troll crouching, and it looked like it was an event leading to doom. I decided I wanted to play with the troll/negative feelings that is part of psychedelics' wide range of experiences. In my mushrooms trips, I usually try hard not to get sucked into negative feelings like horror, despair, fear, but it usually happens despite that. Anyways, the trip's visuals quickly took a dark turn and scary, but I was happy and wanting for this to happen. This caused the negative feelings to be unable to attach onto me because I was loving the negativity as someone would admire a painting. So I was quite disappointed that the negativity in the trip quickly dissolved, so I couldn't experiment and explore the darkness to feed my curiosity. I don't see negativity as good or bad, just part of life. I guess it's a sick pleasure of mine. In the darkness there were similar humanoid entities, but they were aggressive and attacking, and this was quite a cool experience. They were literally throwing punches. This was quite entertaining. As the darkness of the experience faded and the trip turned extremely introspective, more so than any other trip on other psychedelics, So many feelings and ideas crossed my mind, like how I'm always trying to explore phenomenon because I thought it was like the only mystery in life. But then I thought about the fact that I'm even alive at all. Like, how did I get here and become conscious? That alone is a complete mystery slash phenomenon, and wonder. I must be lucky that I'm part of such a family as such as existence. Then I thought about how it must be horrible to not exist. I'm open to my life changing, but I'm sure my existence is eternal. I feel like I'll always be part of nature and and a product of nature. This makes me feel warm inside. I was also feeling intense feelings of love for my family, and I had intense ego death. I saw my personality split into pieces, and the visual representation of those pieces was lost in hyperspace, and I was not myself anymore. I was consciousness, feeling like I'm everything, basically God. This makes me think God may transcend all good and evil and is just above it, the creator of something brilliant that adds so much options to experience. The open-eyed visuals were the most intense I've ever had because I was stuck in hyperspace, eyes open and closed. It was like I would see my room, but it was decorated in hyperspace machines with incredible color moving all around while seeing humanoid entities running around in my room. Sometimes I felt them sitting on my bed. Their company was amazing. I love seeing entities of my subconscious become alive like this, so it's so cool. The trip peaked 3 times. I kept thinking the trip was over, but it came back even stronger. It seemed like forever, but the trip only lasted 4.5 hours. The trip, for some reason, felt so much like mushrooms to the point where sometimes I forgot I was doing DMT and was actually on mushrooms. I guess all natural psychedelics will lead to the DMT experience, and it's just much easier to get that high on DMT. Boy, was I high. And so this experience happened on in 2011, the one that I just read. So, and then I'll read my next one, which is one of my most powerful experiences. And this one also happened in 2011, actually on 11/11/11. So it was like almost like a synchronicity day. But I'll read this one. Hey friends, last night I decided to have a Pharmahuasca trip. I didn't have my scale on me, so I unfortunately unsafely eyed my rue and DMT dose. Oh shit. In the end, I obviously overcounted my dose extremely. I took probably around 4.5 grams of rue and 250 milligrams of DMT sublingually, and swallowed the DMT. This turned out to be beyond heroic compared to any other experience I've ever had. It was the most difficult, crazy experience of my life. It took forever to come on, and I was pissed because I thought I was being teased with another failed dose attempt. It took like an hour and 30 minutes before I was somewhere intense, and that's a long time compared to my other Pharmahuasca experiences. But then it finally happened. It quickly became some sort of mental and visual overload where I somehow went past the visuals into what I guess is the void, the center of the experience, where I could perceive the tryptamine experience all at once. But I was more interested in my state of mind because I realized that I can explore the visions whenever I wanted, because I'm not just the explorer, I'm the creator. I realized that instead of focusing on looking for and finding visuals, I should focus more on how I'm the creator of it all and just create. It made me feel godlike, able to create brilliant alternate realities with just a bit of meditative thought. I thought I had true psychedelic induced near-death experience. I think I had a true psychedelic-induced near-death experience. I thought I had it before, but nothing I've ever experienced in my life matches the stress I felt when I had the idea in my mind that I took way too much Pharmahuasca, and I thought I might have took something that I shouldn't have along with it that doesn't go well with an MAO inhibitor. I was certain my heart was going to fail. I was certain I wasn't going to make it out of this experience alive, so my body/mind went into a state of maximum stress and shock that I really think one only feels when they are about to die and they know it. I could actually see my body in third person. I've never been dissociated with psychedelics like that before. My whole life was flashing before my eyes. I was completely possessed by the chemicals. It was the furthest I've ever been to the Godhead, and I don't think one can go further. Such an amazing experience, unbelievable. And when the super intense stress shock part happened, it all suddenly ended in complete bliss instantly. It was like I went from such an extreme level of mental and physical stress to the complete other spectrum of serenity and bliss. I think death is going to be quite similar to this experience that I just had. It'll probably be the most stress I've ever felt, and then in a millisecond it'll become the most bliss I've ever felt. It's like an extreme emotional spectrum shift of sorts. At least that's how I saw it. At the point of bliss, I thought, it must be over, I must be dead. In a few hours I was like, I was A-okay, false alarm. I was thinking about the concept of infinity and the overall origins of mind. I was thinking that existence probably always has been there, and there has never been a time where nothing exists. It never started and it will never end. The whole trip was resonating the concept of infinity. It was pretty trippy thoughts at the time. This trip was like 6.5 hours, maybe 7. This kind of intense experience / heavy dose, I feel, should only be reserved for special occasions where I really want to feel the most vulnerable and extreme emotional spectrum shifts. So now I'm just going to read the last one that I have here, and I actually shared it before, but I felt that since I just came out of the experience, what I was saying wasn't really it didn't really resonate with how I felt about it after, and I wanted to rewrite it because I felt like it just didn't really accurately represent it. So let me just sort of share it. And this one happened on May 13th, 2016. So this is going to be a better in-depth account of what I experienced. So time period being was 3 a.m., which was when I took my 4 grams of rue ground into powder and mixed with orange mango and a ton of juice to chase after, because it smelled, the smell of Syrian rue triggers my gag reflex. I did the deed holding my nose until as much rue juice was cleaned out of my mouth with the chase. I waited 28 minutes and then I took a capsule of 200 milligrams of shiny white DMT crystals and packed it full. I was starting to feel like it was a little too much since I had trouble packing it all in the capsule, but I assumed that it was because it was really fluffy. I waited for a bit in my basement and was watching Family Guy or South Park, I can't remember. And then when I went to my bed after 15 minutes, I set up a puke bucket in my room and shut off all the lights. So maybe 25 to 30 minutes later, it started coming decently quick with the increased arousal as usual. Then I quickly started getting visions. Usually I start seeing landscapes, but this time it was strange arrangements of circusy looking objects which had a strong alien feel to me. Like it was from some completely alternate universe, or on some level I had no way of fathoming. As I said, it looked very familiar to this, but no image can properly depict what I saw. It was arranged very messy in the background, and and as the trip's intensity increased, it got louder and more crazier, like it was moving at a faster speed. And there was all these wires that were popping in and out in front of me with what I think was triangle shapes with weird writings and symbols on it. So as it increased, I feel like a liftoff where it feels like the same as smoking DMT is coming on, but slightly slower, so I can take in more information. At this point, the overall visions I described quickly increased in speed and loudness and complexity, and as it was increasing, so was my anxiety about what was going on. At this point, I started to feel regret and thoughts of, oh fuck, I packed too much, that sort of panic. I was expecting an immersive but anxiety-free and pleasant experience, but I was figuring out that it wanted to try me. So So while all that going through my head, the speed of the trip keeps exponentially increasing, and at this point I start feeling very dysphoric due to panic and anxiety. And I remember trying to run from the acceleration increase that was in the closed eyes. So I would try to open my eyes so I could somewhat see my ceiling, but I was almost immediately taken over by the immersive acceleration that I was trying to free myself from, and those objects started coming from the ground and ceiling, and I felt as if I was running from a threat, and that I was cornered by it, and I had no choice but to have it rape me. So I gave into it and sort of shut down, and part of my so I shut down part of my anxiety so I could just let it happen. At this point, I felt as if, and this is and this reference is beautifully represents the anxiety. I felt as if I was being forced to go on that hyper-dimensional spaceship Jodie Foster signed up to do in the Carl Sagan movie Contact. Only I was caught deeply off guard because I didn't expect that I would have to deal with that, but it felt like I had no choice but to take that ride. But it felt like an immersive echo of some time where an intense experience like this would actually happen to me, which I'm guessing would be my death. So it felt like at times I could remove myself from the immediate and first-person feeling of the experience, from it's actually happening right now to it's not actually happening right now, but I'm seeing the time that it does. So I was thinking the thoughts, please let me go, I don't want to do this, I want to go back in time and reverse what I took, and felt like I never wanted to do this again. At this point, the only game I had was to control my anxiety, because the more control I had on my anxiety, the more I felt like it wasn't happening right now. But I was just seeing, but when the anxiety increased and I lost that focus, I would feel immense fear that I'm about to be shot out of a cannon, and it's happening right now. So while this stuff is happening, the ground in my room, which for the most part is gone, is now morphing and interweaving with strange glowing planes, as well as objects and shapes and limbs or something. This felt extremely divine to look at, and my ceiling was those weird circusy complex objects. As I was feeling the acceleration increase, it felt like I was moving towards a singularity, or felt like you were dropping into some sort of metaphysical black hole. I think this experience might have inspired Terence McKenna's with his novelty theory, because I felt as if I'm moving towards some sort of novelty understanding, or some ultimate truth. And the ultimate truth is in a metaphorical sense, seems like death, or the scene in the movie Contact. As I'm approaching that singularity, I feel like time becomes non-linear, and even though I haven't reached the singularity, I can somewhat see or feel an echo of what happens when I hit it, and I get the impression that it's like a massive celebration and a birthday party, and it's almost like all the circusy images coming from that event. It's like the moment in time where the universe began, and it feels like a loop where time feels like it already happened, and it's cycling from fast forward to reverse at the same time. So what I said, the clowns were like part of the birthday party or something. I think that was pretty funny. As I got closer to the singularity, it felt like a specific experience that I had were hints that this was going to happen, and it was showing me information that I felt like synchronicity placed there to influence this experience, and it felt like it was all coming together like some massive genius synchronicity mindfuck of epic brilliance. This intense feeling like I was tapping into the essence of that governs synchronicity, and I could feel the forces as some sort of electricity that was ironic, because I was feeling electrical shocks in my fingertips that were real. I don't think that was a hallucination. It was showing me the time on Wednesday where I took acid and randomly came across this 9/11 conspiracy video on Facebook that was trying to say Back to the Future predicted 9/11 through synchro mysticism, and the experience on Pharmahuasca was trying to link that to what was happening. Was trying to link that what was happening was historically as big as what happened back then. Only it may not be happening right now, or it could, but could be. And I felt like it already did, but we all experienced it. I remember feeling like my legs and bodies were dissolving, but it wasn't physically painful, but it could be extremely dysphoric if I gave into the panicking about it, and it was such a sensory overload that I didn't even care about that much anymore, because I was getting raped mentally by the experience in front of me. I don't know if I reached the singularity of that experience, but I think I blacked out a bit and woke up, and shit was still going fucking crazy, and my room was still 85% gone, and at this point I was worried that it was never going to end, and I thought that I was there for 5 hours now. I never usually experience time dilation, but this time I did slightly. I felt like I was in the halfway state between the living and the dead, because I could see the outline structure of my room, but it felt like I was past the barrier, but perhaps not the main barrier. Then mentally, I was so twisted and primal, it felt like an ape in my ability to control my behavior, and some incredible energy emerge and increase inside of me, and then when it hit critical mass, I just exploded in speaking in tongues in this very alien-like gibberish language. It had all these broken syllables and sounds that I cannot reproduce. It sounded like the more loaded I am, the more complex and artistic sounding feeling the language is. It sounded incredible to me, but it probably sounded fucked up to other people. My sense of time was still messed, and I thought time was happening all at once and was going forward and reverse, and I felt like I was seeing my life events happen all at once, and then felt like I was already dead, and then I got the idea that if I damaged my body it wouldn't matter, because I'm not here and time doesn't exist, and this is happening and not happening at the same time. So the idea of the knife in my eye was probably my OCD or something, because I was so worried that since I didn't believe in my permanence, I was so scared I was going to test that by harming myself. So I think this was probably just my OCD, because it's not like I could move or see things to harm myself with. But the idea that I could do it scared me and gave me a lot of anxiety mixed with the anxiety of what was happening. So it was pretty much just that until I finally started to come down, and come down as compared to peaking on like 8 to 10 grams of mushrooms. I think I was out of body for maybe 2 to 3 hours at most. But so I overshot the time I spent when I wrote the quick report, but my sense of time was not back yet. But it took 8 hours or so to get back to baseline. So it's definitely a strange experience, and I don't really know what to make of it, but I guess anyone could but I guess all that anyone can do is record observations and compare. And if anything, here, sorry, I'll just say it. What I wrote there was that, if anything, writing about this stuff is good sort of creative writing. It's good sort of storytelling. I think I like hearing about people's experiences and how they can sort of creatively put it together in words. But that was just my sort of writing, so you know, you can sort of take whatever you want from that.